Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about the post-NESARA. We're going to give a little bit of the background and a little bit of what I think is the foreground on elections. Coming right up. So as we go over this, I want to ask you a couple things. Would you please like and subscribe? Would you kind of leave your comments down there? I really want to know what you guys are thinking about doing in relation to elections. What do you want to do? Where do you want to serve in that way? I think many of you guys have a powerful voice, and I want you to have that voice. You are the voices that I need more than anything else. I want you to drive this ship in ways that you have never thought of. Okay? So I know I'm pushing you out there, but we need you on every level with that too. And I'm so excited for you to kind of step up because many of you have not actually been thinking that way. I'm going to say, I start with this one guy. He called me from a real local town, small town, excuse me, in Texas. The first thing he talks about is the mayor. I'm like, dude, and God goes, bing, 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 like that's what you should be doing. He goes, well, I'm 72 years old. Who cares, man? You got a mind for it. You got an oil mine. He's got some business kind of stuff. I'm like, dude, we need you. We need you out there. And so that's really important to me. So as we get into this topic, again, you can kind of find a lot of stuff on drscottyoung.com. But as we get in this topic, I really want you to think of yourself in the next phase. Okay? Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the promise of things unseen. So I don't want you to think about where you are right now. I want you to think about where you're going to be, because that's what good business owners do. That's what good people who are going to serve in government or going to serve in a new post, whatever that might be. That's what they do. They see themselves into that new situation. Okay. So now in the past, well, how have they been done? Well, in the past, we have so much difficulties when you get there and, elections are messed with in so many different ways. I mean, you go to these polls and there's these exit poll conversations that mean nothing. They're all fake. They're all, slanted. You have issues of you can't put signs within a certain distance, but come on. And we're not spending enough time in researching who we believe because we have partisaned on Republican and Democrat. I'm going to say both sides are just part of the uniparty. Stop with the Republican Democrat stuff, okay? But that's where we've been. We have been stuck in this idea of hoping that the results come out in a more fashionable way. But the reality is, I don't care how they come out as long as they come out with what the people say. Now, that's the democracy portion of what we're talking about. The rest of it is a representative type of government that you need to have a voice within, and you haven't had it in forever because they don't want it. One of their controversial statements is to show your ID. Now, let me just tell you, I just had to get on an airplane. The first thing that I have to do when I get on an airplane is always like take off my belt. I take off my iWatch or whatever, and I never have anything in my pockets. It's the Scott mechanism, right? And I go through, I have TSA pre-check. And guys, it's not that hard to get TSA pre-check, but it really helps you when you go through some of these lines, right? And so you tend to have your phone, up there with your app, which is what I would recommend because then you can always find things going on. But they don't even need it anymore. You know what they need is they need your ID. Now we're talking about real IDs, and it doesn't matter where you are. And so, and you have to show your ID. Great. Let's just talk about other places you have to show your ID. If you get pulled over because you've been doing 60 in a 25 zone, you got to show your ID. I just had to buy groceries, and I just might have like a wine cooler once in a while, right? I'm I'm 58 years old. I look it. I don't look 21, but I have to show my ID. If I do almost anything, if I have to open a bank account, I have to show my ID. So why is it a problem to have this? And the answer is you got Kathy Hochuli over there in idiot New York who's telling you that black people can't show their ID. They don't even know what a computer is. And I'm like going, that's so insulting. I mean, it is so insulting of every single person in America. That's how stupid their arguments are. So don't listen to that stuff. That is coming. And that conversation that you see and you're hearing about it is actually part of the interesting psyop that's going on in the background. That's part of the NESARA conversation. You guys need to hear it because that is how we identify it. This has been occurring for me as we are taking care of a family member who's now passed away. One of the things that occurred, which is so powerful, is that as we decided, through his request to have a cremation. So he's going through cremation. You have to do the cremation. It takes a few weeks, and then you get the cremation back. And by that time, they've filed the death certificate with the state, which actually goes up to the federal government. It's a real interesting point. Now we actually chose to get some paper ones because you kind of need them every once in a while because you got to show the exact paper. And I always say scan everything in so you can have it available to take care of your dead family members with this too. Now, here's the funny part. Most times, Social Security and disability, which is specifically a VA disability, I'm watching the accounts trying to close out all this stuff, right? And guess what happens? Normally most people get it around the beginning of the month. He got it at the very, very dead end of the month because his birthday was on the dead end of the month, right? So I see it kind of deposited in his normal amounts, and then I think that the death certificate came around the beginning-ish of the month, right? So that was about 2 weeks later. And it's funny because we hadn't even notified anyone of Social Security or VA. We hadn't done anything of that part, because we're still waiting for the death certificate so we kind of move forward on areas. Guess what? His money had been clawed back, so you don't even have the money for that month that you still got to pay bills for, right? And think about people who are even on the edge. Now, he didn't have a lot of financial capabilities, but he left a little bit for us. But at least I wasn't dying trying to find a way to pay the bills. But what if someone is so close to it? They clawed him back. Social Security had clawed that back. VA had clawed it back. And you're going, how come they actually knew what happened? Now, it's fascinating on the other end of this. Try to cancel his driver's license. Try to cancel the voter roll, and you need an act of Congress. Well, are you the real person are you the real person? Do you have to show me your trust, and you have to show me your death certificate, and then we have to look it over? You got to be kidding me. Social Security will take it back, but if I want to get them out of the voter rolls, and you've already seen it. And that tells you of the sickness of the system with it too. Another sickness of our elected system is what I call bundled bills. Now, as an audiologist, one of the things that I found in the state of Oklahoma that really pisses me off is sales tax built into hearing aids. We're the only state in the union that has sales tax built into hearing aids. Only state. Now, from 2006 through 2009, 10, somewhere in that range, I communicate with everyone in the state. And I mean all the way up and down. There wasn't anyone that I didn't talk to. They got sick and tired of hearing from me. Now, I have to collect that money and then just pay it to the state. So I don't lose anything necessarily. There's a few receipts or, credit card bills that you have to pay or, some type of a fee, but it's a minimal number overall for a business to have to pay, right? I'm just thinking of the patients, right? And I hate it. Now listen, sales tax, there's nothing wrong with sales tax. But when you have a medical device like hearing aids and you're charging it under the circumstance, what they did in the state of Oklahoma, and it took me forever to figure this out, that they were shunting that money over 75% to the fireman's retirement fund and 25% to a teacher retirement fund. So they're stealing from the people who are in Social Security age points and giving it over into this other area. And you're going, okay, I don't have a problem with those two having a retirement account, but why do they need to have that? And I'm going, in those particular ways, why can't we have a situation where we want to come up with a fireman retirement account? We do not an earmarking, we do a bill that has availability for that. Fine, have no problem with it. You might have a problem with it, but I don't care. But I get to choose that. So guess what this bill would go through the state of Oklahoma is the hearing aid sales tax. So we're going to kill it off. That's what it was listed as. And then it would go through state and the House and then die in committee. Go through state and House, not just die in committee, but would die on the governor's desk over and over again. And as I was pushing for this, there was another thing on the back end of this too. Two things. Number one was a circumstance where they were firming up the law and making it tougher for Scott to try to kill this off. I didn't know that. Secondarily, there was when I started to read the bill, there was a snot load of other things in the middle of it. The statement is hearing aid sales tax, but there was all these other earmarked things that people would look at and go, hey, I can't vote for that because I that would hurt my district. And so that's what these bills do. This is the sickness of our system. Now, when we come to the EBS is that answer. Emergency broadcast signal, or the EAS, the emergency action signal that will come to your phone. We are going to be done with those in government on many levels. You have to understand the cabal has been out there all the way down to the school board levels, all the way down to the city councils. This is what they do because that's their new cream of the crop, that they rise those people up from city councils into mayors, into governors, into Senate, whatever that might be. And so this is how they grow the next crop of people out there. And it's this incredibly long process because that's what they've been doing for generations. Do you know that Joseph P. Kennedy is JFK Jr., who passed away? Yes, he did. I'm sorry, but you want to get all mad at me, that's fine. But JFK died in November 22nd of 1963. Now, Joseph P. Kennedy is his dad. Now, he's one of those 13 families. Okay, it's real interesting. One of the gross 13 families that have been doing all this bad stuff to us, right? Now, Joseph P. Kennedy brought up JFK, had the mob move in Chicago in the 1960 election against Nixon. Very well known. I don't have to show it to you. You can easily look it up. He won that election because of the Chicago thing. Now, who is Nixon? Well, Nixon was also a World War II veteran, just like JFK was, but kind of a minor one. And yet he was an actor brought on by Joseph P. Kennedy to go against JFK for such a time as this. And then he was promised that he would become president. So this is how they do this. They have the manipulational patterns in there. That's why you see AOC and the way that these people do it. That's why you see Reagan, even a Reagan, in the way that he accomplished it. Or Bush Jr. I mean, come on. That is the least hardworking person that you ever saw. All of these people are just, they're just a cancer in the systems. And that's where you're going to see some changes. Now, as we go through some of that changes and we see the wipeout, this is what I believe the Brunson case is so powerful. When the Brunson case comes out, what will happen is that it wipes out everyone in Senate, Congress, and in presidency. But it's going to go down to the lowest levels. When the QFS we were trying to get this thing to move forward on other levels. One of the things that I started to hear about is there were places deep in Arkansas. You go to Arkansas, deep in Arkansas, that they were looking through the records. Now it was the White Hats looking into the records and seeing all the craziness that was happening. And it was just a real odd statement. And that's what tells you that we have to go all the way down to the bottom levels. Now, what happens is that when you move in from one term to a next term, in the old term, you have a certain number of cabinet members underneath you, or secretaries, or whatever that might be. Whatever, depending upon, I mean, if it's a little higher level position, obviously, let's say you're Congress, you're a congresswoman and you're in Congress, you might have 6, 8, 10 people around you, right? Obviously, a president has hundreds and hundreds, right? Now, what happens is that when you go into your next term, if you make it through your next term, you will fire those people and then rehire them into the next term. That's in essence what we're going to be doing when we move into the constitutional republic. Now, if someone is actually real good in that way, it's okay. You're going to have to rerun without the silliness going on. And you're going to find a lot of these people are just going to be gone. Really cool. Second point that kind of comes out there is we have to have term limits. So let's give you an example. Let's just say we have a mayor, and a mayor does a 2-term limits. Then he might move up, and let's say he moves into Congress. And so he does a 2-term limit. So there's another 4 years, right? And then he moves into Senate. So those are 6-year terms. Okay, 12 years. And then he gets into presidency, 4-year terms each, right? And so you have maybe 20, 30-year, 20, 25-year term. This is a long-term kind of person, but you're not going to see the Mitch McConnells who like totally blank out on stage, or Maxine Waters, or any of these other morons that you see up there. They're just brittle to the bones, right? This is the silliness that we need to get rid of. You have to be out of office after 2 terms. That was the brilliance of John Adams and what they were trying to accomplish. The secondary point is you're going to see the QFS as that scanner. So I want you to think about this. You're going to have the ability to take up your phone and have your ID, and you'll be able to scan in. This is what I've been listening to quite a bit, and this is a very interesting stuff. But I just want you to perceive this as an idea. What if, here's the Scott mechanism. What if I got to have the real ID, show my ID through my phone? Now, if someone doesn't have that ability, at least they have their ID out, right? They go into the system of the QFS and they go on and they do their ballot, and a paper ballot comes out, or whether they write it out, whatever. I mean, Trump is talking about a paper ballot, but so they write a paper ballot. They scan it into the system. They walk out the door. Instead of the 2,000 hanging chads in Florida, they'd look go, oh, that's right. That's who I voted for. And they walk out the door. And within hours of the last time frame, there isn't any worry about this thing. There's not having to have big tabulation issues. There might be bad ballots because someone didn't fill it out correctly. I'm sorry, but that will always happen. And yet, you're going to find less than a 0.001, error rate. And then we'll have the real people involved. It's fascinating, guys. Even Trump talked about this one, is that you're going to see lobbyists and lawyers who will not be able to go together. Now, actually, Trump talked about this in an older video, and he does these little tiny 2-minute videos. And he goes, if you're going to pick a lobbyist, you're not going to be a lawmaker, and vice versa. Well, that's a powerful point. I was talking to a guy that was in the state Senate, in Oklahoma, and I knew him for a while, and he was talking about a congressman. This is a good guy overall. And one of the things that happened to these congressmen is they get into congressman, and he was talking when he was a freshman congressman, and this guy helped him through, through the election process and was there with him for a while. And every single night, he could go out in DC, and there were women hanging around him, knowing that he's a heterosexual man. And he was married, and there were women hanging on him. He had to push them away. And he had to make sure that, there was no impropriety, because that's what they do. There are millions of dollars floating around. There are all this other ugly stuff that they get these people into, and they get them into the muck, and then you have the problems with that. That's the sickness of the system. We need to have people that are voting what their heart is telling them, not what their heart and mind. When I say heart, that means your soul, okay, which is your mind, your will, and emotions, okay? Your heart would be how you make that final decision there. And at least they're making a quality choice based upon their moral input here, their insides, their guts, in essence. That's what I want to see. And they can make a mistake on that particular thing, but it's an honest mistake because it's no earmarking, one bill, very short. I can read it. I don't have to have 1,000 pages written up of this stuff. One bill, maybe it's a few pages, but I can really get in there and figure out what I feel about that particular one. And I don't have people pushing me on that area. What a concept. And I leave you with this point. How are you going to help out? Are you going to be a local mayor? Are you going to go for state senate? Now, I have a very close friend of mine who talked to me about being in Congress and Senate. I don't want to say his name, and he and I have talked about this quite a bit. And I've said to him, I believe that you should be that guy. He is completely awakened. He understands the NESARA stuff. And that gentleman he's a very young guy, and he is primed waiting. I believe God is setting him up for that particular run that's about ready to come. You guys need to be thinking about this. If you're kind of getting an excited feeling in your gut, maybe God's talking to you about that. I encourage you to look at that as a possibility out there. And if that's what God's telling you to do, start to move forward and ask the questions. Put it on the shelf. Say, God, are you talking about state senate? Are you talking about U.S. Congress? Are you talking about being a local mayor? What about a city council? What fires your passions in there? We need you. You're going to find some possibilities of resources that are going to come up, and you're going to be able to do it because guess what? The people of the past, they didn't have to have massive resources, but they had to be out there and they had to put themselves out there in different ways. It's not going to be the sick game that you've seen it. So I hope that helps you give an idea. So like and subscribe. I really appreciate you.